Johnny and I met with the book going on 3, well, maybe close to 4 years now. And my question is always, Johnny's got nicknames for everybody. Does Scott Karl's with us today? Johnny, did you have one for Scott, or was he one that escaped?
No, Scotty never really had a nickname, unless I'm wrong. Am I wrong, Scott?
No, I don't remember really having one. I mean, I'm sure guys just called me a bunch of 4-letter words sometimes, but
that goes with everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. But nothing, no nickname. Not like not Spin. Spin was one of my favorites.
Yep.
Isn't that beautiful?
Spin is
one of my favorite ones was Topper. You remember?
Although that could be applied to a couple people, I suppose.
Oh yes. Many people tried to snatch at by their actions, but no. Yeah, Larry Haney for Topper was classic.
Well, tell the viewers what that was for.
Topper was because whatever you said, Larry Haney would top. So if you happen to show up to the ballpark that afternoon and said, "Hey, you guys, you won't believe what I saw. I just saw, an elephant crossing Wisconsin Avenue." Larry just low-keyed would look and yell across the clubhouse like, "Oh man," in that southern drawl, and say, "Oh man, back in '73, I saw 2 elephants going across Kilbourne." I mean, that's just him. He had to top every conceivable thing.
Scott, do you know how Listash got Spin?
The way I understand it is he got a haircut, and Johnny described it as though the barber just sat him in the chair and spun it around and held the clippers in place.
I'm very reluctant to call you guys by nicknames. I just don't feel I deserved it, but I call him Spin just because, he bought my latest book, and he's so kind to get in touch, just so nice, doesn't have to do it, but it's so amazing. So, Johnny,
I was a rookie when that one was dropped on him. So like that was 95. And I think I said it once in his presence, and he shot me this look like, "I will destroy you." And so I didn't really use it again. But then I saw Pat, he was coaching AAA.
And with the Mariners.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago while he was running through Vegas, and I was living there, and I got to, kind of say hi to him and hang out and, catch up a little bit. And he looked the same, just all of us a little bit older, a little bit fatter. And, but I loved hearing it, but I never did use it.
Did you, Scott, when you came up, I know you told me for my book, but can you just briefly tell how you got the information or how you got the call to the Bigs?
Well, yeah, I was, and I kind of recapped this to Johnny too. I was battling it out in '95, the year after the strike at spring training. I was normally a starter, but relievers were all they had. So it came down to me and a couple guys, and Garner called me in and just said, "Hey, you did great, but I need somebody with a little more veteran experience out there. So I'm going to go with Jeff Bronke." And I said, "All right." So that hurt a little bit, but I had to jump in my car, drive from Phoenix, Arizona to New Orleans, and got there as quickly as possible, about a day and a half, and parked my car, got to the airport, jumped on a plane, flew to Omaha to meet up with the AAA team, got in at, 1 or 2 in the morning, whatever it was, got down to the lobby the next morning for a day game, and Chris Bando, the AAA manager at the time, said, "Hey, really appreciate you getting here so quickly, but I can't let you dress out today." And of course, I was starting to lose my mind now because I'd already been cut from camp and been traveling all over the place. Now I can't even dress out with my team. And I'm like, "What the hell?" And he said, "Well, the reason I can't let you dress out is because Jeff Bronke, who you were battling, blew out his arm in an exhibition game last night. You're going up." And so I got the goosebumps, of course. I still get them when I mention it. And I hit the payphone, called all the family, and let them know. And then I showed up in Milwaukee, and the team showed up a day later, and there was opening day.
Well, can I just interject? There's 2 things that'll never happen again that you mentioned in your story. Number one, what's a payphone?
Right.
You know, that doesn't happen anymore. And number two is that nowadays, I doubt somebody in your same position would drive their own car to meet the AAA team halfway across the country. You know, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, but back then that's what you did. I mean,
Oh,
I wasn't
yeah.
making money. There was nobody to do this, that, and the other for us. It was like, you just do this. I felt lucky almost that they said, go ahead and drive it to New Orleans. I thought they were just going to say, hey, go meet up with the team in Omaha and, leave your car here in Phoenix and we'll just figure that out. But
Yeah.
in fact, because I went up and down like 3 times that year, my car got left at the airport the last time I got called up, and it was down there for almost a month before, I finally went into Phil Garner's office and said, hey, am I here to stay? And he said, yeah. And that's when I got one of the clubbies to fly down and drive it back up. But I mean, it was a crazy, crazy first year.
Like coming into the locker room with like Molly and Kid for the first time.
Molly,
They were both gone by then, weren't they?
They were both gone by the time I was in the big leagues, but I was at minor league spring training in '93 and I got called over one afternoon to kind of be a secret backup in the game just in case I didn't get in, but showed up right before game time and I was sitting down and they both just on their own separately came over and said, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming over. We really appreciate this. I mean, it's like, they didn't have to do any of that. And they didn't even know if I was going to play, but it was just like, it was really cool to see somebody of that kind of stature come over and give what was I at that time, 22-year-old kid, a little fist bump and, hey, thanks for being here kind of thing. So that was really special. And then even Jesse Orozco, who was, pitching out of the bullpen for us at the time, he realized like I was just kind of hanging out and didn't know anybody. And he sat and talked to me for like 10 minutes, gave me one of his gloves, which I ended up using for an entire season. I mean, just like really cool veteran guys that didn't have to do any of that. And they did. I really appreciated it.
Wow. Orozco was so low keyed and just a great guy, just a super guy.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 of them, I don't remember much from that day. And like I said, I didn't get in the game, but I was down in the pen, sitting there watching the game and so forth. But the 3 of them, all on their own, separately, just came up and said hello. And that meant a lot because they were way beyond my stature at that time.
Well, John and I talk about this kind of thing a lot. I love the stuff that we as a fan would never know, even though it was around the park. Can you talk to me, Scott, about you get the phone call from the dugout? Talk to me about the mindset, when you went in, and talk to me about your preparation, the first few minutes before you leave to get on the mound.
So my first outing, 95, we had the expanded rosters for about 3 weeks because of the strike and the shortened spring training. So I got to be player 28 out of the 28 expanded roster, which was great. But I was up for almost 2 weeks and hadn't pitched. And so we're in Baltimore. And the first night, I can't remember which way it happened, but the first night, I think we blew them out. The second night, they blew us out. And I didn't get into either of those games. So one of our starters, a guy named Bill Wegman, went into Phil Garner's office and said, what are you doing? And of course, Phil didn't understand what he meant. And he's like, you got this rookie out there collecting dust, not doing anything. You just had 2 blowout games in either direction that you could have thrown him in where he couldn't have screwed it up anymore. So if you're not going to pitch him in those games, like, why do you even have him? Send him down, let him get his work. He's dying on the vine out there. And so I don't know what that meant to Phil, but the next day I go in the 8th inning in a 2-1 ball game as my first outing. So, nothing like getting into a blowout. I'm right in the thick of it. And, Camden is the bullpens are out behind center field. So it's like the longest run on the planet. And I won't forget this. I'm getting called in for the 8th inning and they are blaring Cotton Eye Joe over the sound speaker. That's all I can hear on the entire run in, and it's just, and the place is packed. I mean, Johnny, you remember that they have a good team.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
50,000 people plus.
Well, that ballpark was practically new then too.
Yeah, it was only like a year or two old, and so it was. I'm like trying not to laugh as I'm running in because I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is ridiculous. There's 50,000 people. There's a stereo system. I can't even hear myself think. And I'm just hoping I don't throw my first warm-up pitch to the backstop. And I didn't, but I got started out with Brady Anderson, and crazy as this sounds, Brady and Anderson and I actually went to the same high school.
Right.
Not at the same time. He was about 6-7 years ahead of me, but that was a very weird coincidence that my debut is against a guy that went to the same school. So threw him a first pitch slider. He took it, threw him a second pitch slider. He swung and missed. And I'm thinking, I got this. Threw him another pitch and he whacked it for a ground rule double. So that didn't work so well. But I think the next guy was Manny Alexander, who hit like a swinging bunt, and I threw him out. The next guy was Ripken, who I wanted to just kind of call timeout and shake his hand, but that wasn't allowed. So he got some seeing eye 12 hopper between short and third for a hit. And then I got Palmeiro and Baines and ended up getting them out. So, and that was it. And then we hit the road, drove, and we lost the game. But of course, I'm sitting on the bus with an ear-to-ear smile because I just got my debut. And anyways, we drove up to New York, and you might want to cut this next part out. But we get into New York.
Unless there's fuckers involved, and then we'll
not exactly. Everything's legal.
But I forgot that we drove to New York from Baltimore.
Yeah, we took the bus, got into New York, and I'm walking into the lobby, and Mike Fetters, one of our veteran relief pitchers who was from Hawaii, and I played college in Hawaii, so he took an affinity to me. He said, "Hey, get your stuff and then be down in the lobby in 10 minutes." So I said, okay. So I show up in the lobby, and it's me, Vonnie, Fett, and Mr. Adam here. And we hop in an SUV and we end up pulling up in front of some place about 10, 15 minutes later. I have no idea where we are.
I do, but go on. Yeah.
We walk in, and there's like this glass kind of built like structure behind us. We walk in, we go to the left, we're back in a private room. We end up having like one of the best dinners I think I'd ever had, the four of us. And then this guy and this girl come in while we're eating, and they go back into the corner, and they're just kind of making out. And I figure, whatever, good on them. Didn't think anything of it. We're done with the meal. Some guy comes in and says, "Hey, Mr. Vaughn, we've got your table ready for you." So we walk up out of that room and walk around the other side of it where it scores. And of course, I didn't know any of this. And so we're in our little area, and they, all the lovely ladies parade off the stage and come walking by our little area. And this one girl comes up and says, "Would you like a dance?" And I said, "No, I'm fine, thanks. I'm just admiring the whole scene." And she says, "Well, do you mind if I sit down?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." So she sits on my leg, and we're sitting there talking, and I'm kind of face to face with all her parts. And finally, Vonnie looks over, and he's like, "Hey, there's no talking around here." And he hands her some money, and then she gets up and just starts dancing for me. And that happened like 2 or 3 times throughout the evening. And that was my whole debut day.
That's not a bad 24 hours.
Why do it not? That happened to you, Johnny, about 7,300 times.
No, I was going to tell him. I think I just went there for the meal that evening. Yeah.
I'm sure you went home and called the family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ran home and called the family.
Yeah, that's what normally happens.
Yeah.
Johnny, was Scott part of those Tucson bus trips like John Greenberg was asking?
Oh, I'm sure Scotty got stuck going to Tucson more than once. And everybody
I had to make a couple trips, and one that was worse than the other because one, I was just a backup. I didn't even pitch, so that sucked. I
Oh,
went down to start one time, and then the one time I was a backup. But I don't know. I felt like I got off easy.
What was so crappy about him, John?
well, nobody liked going to Tucson just because it was, everybody is spoiled that has spring training in Arizona because you only drive 20 minutes as opposed to Florida spring trainings where you could drive 2.5 hours, you
Yeah.
know? So Arizona is cake then, and it was always amusing when we get a player in a trade or something, and they had played in the big leagues for years, but they always had spring training in Florida. And then they come to our spring training, they're going, are you kidding me? We can drive our own car to the ballpark and it's 15 minutes away, and then I can go home after. I mean, it's like they're getting away with murder. But anyway, Tucson was the one big trip. And because we were in the middle of nowhere in Chandler, Arizona, which had nothing at that time, we were as far south in the Phoenix metropolitan area as you could get. So it wasn't miserable, but it was a drag. But I used to love, well, when I'd go on that trip, we'd get in it. By the time we hit that stretch on the freeway, Highway 10, I think it is,
Yeah.
and guys are just starting to nod off. I'd stand up from my seat, second row or something, and say, hey, fellas, just so we don't go sideways, I don't want nobody to get in trouble. So as soon as we get to Tucson, we got stretching. So strap it on. We're going to go out and stretch. You guys are going to take a little BP, and then game's going to start. So I don't want anybody getting in trouble. So since it's in Tucson, y'all check your watches now. Set it back. There's a 20-minute time difference. And I can remember Sheffield in particularly looking at his, blinged out watch and setting it back. And Bonnie looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? It's Johnny. He's screwing with you. Don't think, and other guys, kind of laughing, the older players, and yeah.
Oh, there's always somebody who's going to fall for it.
That or hey guys, there's a prize. The first guy on this bleak highway to see the first jackalope.
The jackalope, yeah.
And Bonnie almost got in a fight one time. I think it was his rookie year. He swore he saw a jackalope. Somewhere around Casa Grande,
Well, it helped that you had the antlers up in the training room so everyone understood what they were looking for.
That's right. A visual aid always helps.
Absolutely. It always helps.
Scott, what have you been doing, Scott, primarily since you retired?
I've been in wealth management now for almost 12 years, private money management for people and for corporate plans. And I love it. I love what I do.
It's funny because there's a couple other former Brewers that do the same thing. One here lives here in the Valley, and the other one's out in Charlotte. Chris George, did you know him, Scott?
Oh yeah. He came through both the minor leagues and the big leagues. He was older than I was, but I got him on both sides of that. I think Miski too.
Yeah, that's the guy that's out here in the Valley.
Okay.
Is Matt Miski's in finance?
Yeah, he's out in Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah, he was with an independent firm like I am, and he's been doing it for even longer than I have.
Who do you keep in touch with besides John Adam?
Cirillo, and I see Mark Loretta from time to time. I'm connected with Tim Unroe and Brian Banks through some Facebook messaging and so forth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so those are really the top four. I've seen Vonnie once in a while at fantasy camp or at a charity golf tournament. He's looking good. I'm trying to think. And then, just being down here in San Diego where there's a few retirees, I see some guys from other teams, not that were teammates, but those are probably the main teammates that I see.
Do you see Brunansky or Orozco down there?
No, I don't see either of them. I know that they're down in the area, but I just haven't run into them. I thought I'd run into with Jesse at like a golf tournament or something because I know he's a big golfer, but I haven't seen Jesse in many years.
Right.
I'm sure it's kind of stupid, but of one thing in your time in the bigs, what do you miss? If you could pick one thing, what's the thing you miss the most?
I miss the locker room. I miss the
Yeah.
playing cards before the game, shooting the shit, talking about last night's craziness, making fun of each other, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
You know, I miss the paychecks, but it's the locker
I was
room.
gonna. I always
Yeah.
say there's two things guys miss. The first and the 15th, for
Yeah.
sure. And personally, and please, you know, we don't judge each other here, but I miss Sunday morning day games or Saturday day games, the coffee.
Yeah.
The what?
Yeah. That was special.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you say? What was special?
The coffee in the clubhouse.
You're being serious?
The two different pots.
Yeah, the leaded and unleaded coffee.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
what
so
is this a joke? What was so special about it?
The greenie, no greenie.
Oh, I remember that story.
yeah.
I remember that. Did that happen?
And I didn't drink coffee, so I didn't have to deal with it. But
Oh,
I mean,
really?
You better know which pot you were going after.
Well,
Yeah.
can you divulge it now, John? I know what it is. Scott knows what it is. Is it going to get you in hot water?
No pun intended. Yeah. No, it was, you know, back then during that wild time in the 90s and, you know, and late 80s, you know, guys would spike one of the coffee urns with amphetamines.
Wow.
And you know, I'd laugh about it a little bit, but then I'd always give them a shout out in the clubhouse and say, especially I picture myself at Wrigley in that little visitors clubhouse and just go, hey guys, at least be, you know, cool about it, you know, but you got to remember, guys, we've got a couple 60-year-old coaches on this that are drinking coffee in the morning, and it's probably not good for them to be drinking that coffee.
No.
Yeah.
Did you know the Nazis were all gooped up on like severe, when they went like some 25, 30 miles on foot. They were all wired up. They had them going day and night. I'm a History Channel guy, but you would think the Nazis bad enough, but they have them amped up on coke or amphetamine.
Yeah, well, all is fair in, you know, love and war, you know. So
hey, back in that times, whatever you could take for the advantage.
Yeah. I would have brought it. Look, didn't they have cocaine in the Coca-Cola?
I think originally, supposedly.
I was born in the wrong time, I think. I would have liked to have been born back then.
Hey, gents, I've got about 2 minutes, and then I have another.
I was going to wrap up. Maybe we'll do this again, Scott. Thanks so much.
Hey, anytime. Johnny, I look forward to seeing you in about a month.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I was going to call Billy and try and get together for breakfast with him, you know, before fantasy camp. And I'm trying to talk him into having two.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe have one, you know, in January, and then have one in October.
Ooh. I'm down for both.
Yeah, because, you know, hey, the weather in October is perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the fields aren't being used anyway, so.
Well, yeah, and everyone's got that postseason playoff World Series high, you know, so.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. I'll echo that when I see him.
Okay, cool.
Scott, thank you so much for spending some time with
us. You got it, boys. You guys have a good one.
All right, man. Take care, Scotty.
Okay, bye.